Thank you. Thank you. All right, good evening. Let's get started. So this is the next listening session. If you remember last time we were together, we had representatives from Eagle Brook here. They had the opportunity to share their heart and their minds and their concept of ministry, and they had the opportunity to hear from all of us. And that was really eye-opening for them. They have good knowledge about us. In fact, Dale Peterson was baptized here. He has a real good knowledge about Trinity/Life Point, but there's a lot of things they learned about us they weren't aware of. And they said, well, that's a good question. We'll take that away and we'll get back to you. So that's what tonight is. Tonight's kind of a follow-up in that regard. So Jacob, next slide, please. Let's do it with a little bit of a level set. I don't know if all of you have had an opportunity to watch me. Apparently I'm online. I don't watch myself. I don't like doing that. Or be to one of these. But so how did we get to be here? Well, first of all, remember, Eagle Brook came here at our request. Over a year ago, last August or September, we as the board were questioning what God had for the future here at Life Point. And was it in fact time to start exploring the Life Point ministry ending and a new ministry beginning? That was over a year ago. It took us some time to get to where we're at, but eventually we reached the place where we were looking at what other options there might be. In the last meeting I led, I shared with you that the frustration was we said, okay, God, what should we do? And as God so often does, he said nothing. There was no 10 Commandment, lightning bolt, burning bush moment. And so we said, all right, keep going forward, keep going forward. And what did happen was we started getting no's. We would explore this option, and that would become an, here's a great option. No, that's a no. And yet every step we took in regard to Eagle Brook was a yes, and a yes, and a yes. And so that's how we got to be here. The desire is we really want to work together with Eagle Brook to finalize terms, to continue to flesh things out. One nice thing about this is the fact that they have done this before. They have done this before. They've effected church purchases or enacted church purchases before. Because I don't know if I asked you this, I asked the board, here's a question. Who owns the church? Yeah, go with the youth group answer. Jesus owns the church. You're right. He does. But that was a high-level question we as a board had to ask ourselves, and then all the little questions that cascaded out under that and continue to. The key, again, a point I want to remember at the end of the day, it's our decision. It's our decision whether or not we sell to Eagle Brook and become an Eagle Brook. It's our decision. We get to pick what to do. The reason we're coming to you finally in the way we did is because we realize our pastoral staff, our ministry staff, some of our ministry staff, the board, we said, you know what? This is what we got to do. And it's concerning and it's emotional and it opens a lot of questions, certainly. But we're saying this is what we've got to do. But ultimately, it's our choice. So ultimately, we're going to vote on it. Not tonight. December 4th, we're going to vote on it, all right? But as part of that, getting to that point where you feel as if you've had enough information, that's why we're doing these listening sessions. And I'll share with you that we've heard a lot over the last couple weeks, and Eagle Brook, as I mentioned last time they were with us, had a bunch of takeaways, and they came back to us the other Tuesday night at our board meeting, and they said, hey, here's our responses. So next slide, please. So big themes. They noted there were 4 big themes that they heard from you and all of us. Number 1 was, what about all the other churches and entities that use our facility? Help me, board. Is it 10 or 11? It's 12? Okay, so there are 12 other groups, 3 churches, 3 homeschools, Julie Clausen's book club, BSF, that use it. What about that? That was a big theme that they took away. All right? Another one was ministry for senior adults. What about ministry for senior adults? The third one was, how do our ministries roll into their ministries? What would that look like? And then the last one would be, how do we end well? When we take the vote on December 4th, if the majority votes yes, how do we end well? Who owns the church? How do you end a church to begin another one? These are the 4 big themes. So let's take a look at those. Next slide, please. So first response in regard to the other churches that rent or use LifePoint, what Eagle Brook came back is they said this is not their model. It's not the Eagle Brook model. They did note that they at one time had a preschool and they have rented space in the past, but they noted that it always takes away from the ministries that they're trying to provide as a church. And for various reasons, obviously, we have chosen to rent out our facility in the past, but this is not the Eagle Brook model. So if this were to become an Eagle Brook, it would be an Eagle Brook, and that's it. They would not enter into relationships with separate groups. So in regard to that, I want you to know that we have notified all the groups that use our church that they should plan to be out and have a new home no later than March 15th. Okay? So now you say, wait a minute, Ross, we haven't taken the vote yet. You're right, we haven't. But if we got to tell you that it's time to look for a new place, do we tell you now so you can start looking now, or do we wait till December 4th? You follow me? Make sense? Okay. What are you guys knitting? Are you knitting? I love that. Next slide, please. Ministry for senior adults. We told Eagle Brook about the Thursday morning coffee group that's been meeting here for so long and is, in fact, a small group. And they said, that's great, absolutely. We would certainly allow the senior adult coffee group to continue occurring here on site. They did say, depending on renovation and schedule, that they may ask that group to adjust the day or the time or the space they meet in. But they said, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, that group would be welcome to continue meeting. They would hope that this would funnel into their form of a community into a small group. They have a wide variety of small group ministries, and they also noted that this would be lay-led. There would not be paid staff that would run it now. I can't retire yet. I've never attended one. Those of you that attend, is there any paid staff that runs it now? No, right? It's lay-led now? All right. So that was the answer to that question. The next one, how do our ministries roll into their ministries? If you were here, you remember we had a lot of conversation. We have a lot of ministries that are dear to our heart. We have the Karen people. We have Anchored Ministries. We have Boy Scouts, right? So what they said is this. They said, well, Eagle Brook would do their core offerings that they do at every campus. So their offerings are, they do worship, they do kids ministry, they do student ministry, they have a care ministry, and then they have local partnerships. And we would be the same. That would be no different. They clarified, and this shouldn't be a surprise, but just to clarify, it's good to do that. They offer one service type. Their service type is their service type. As of now, they do not offer services in different languages. That was something that someone asked about. Now, I will share with you also that, is it Wednesday afternoons at the White Bear campus? Wednesday morning at the White Bear campus, they have a traditional church service that I believe is well attended. All right? So there is that offering. They do that at the White Bear campus. Regarding the kitchen, we had a lot of questions about the kitchen. What about the kitchen? Well, they said, well, we probably wouldn't touch it. They have no plans to use it much, and they noted that they don't do dinners, they don't do food service, they don't do that sort of thing that we do, but they would have no plans to do anything to the kitchen. They said we would have no plans for that space. Now, in regard to, again, our ministries, I noted that they do local partnerships. Each campus, and they talked about this, and I wrote down some of them, and I didn't bring it with me. Each campus determines a community partner. So one campus has a prison ministry, I believe. Anyone remember what the others were? No? Okay. So what they said was that if this became, yes, Bonnie? Salvation Army? Oh, thank you. That's right. Union Gospel Mission, one campus. Their local partnership is Union Gospel Mission. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Shelters, food. All right, great. Thank you. So what they said was that the same would apply here at this campus. So this campus would choose a community partner. It would have to meet their criteria for ministry, and we wouldn't know what that would look like, again, until the church voted. But maybe that would be Anchored Ministries if Anchored wanted to partner them. Maybe that would be a Corinne-based ministry, or it could be any number of things. Okay? Big question. We're going to turn 150 years. We gotta celebrate that. When they came back Tuesday night, they said, "That's amazing." They had no idea that we were going to be 150 years old. And they said, "Yes, we want to celebrate that." Absolutely. Don't want to celebrate it, have to celebrate it. It's a big deal. So what would it look like? Don't know. Sorry, still got a lot of unknowns. We got to take a vote, and then we got to plan, and then we got to schedule. But I want to share with you that they said absolutely. That is something they would definitely want to celebrate. Okay? And then the name. The question was asked, what would the name be? The name would be Eagle Brook Church, Maplewood Campus. Next slide. So, how do we end well? What does this look like? Continue. Well, there's several factors that we're talking about and we're determining together. There's a lot of timing things. We need a voting date, a close date, because again, we would sell this to them. When would final services be? When would first services be at Eagle Brook? There's a memorandum that gets drafted. There's a purchase agreement that gets drafted. There's all kinds of documents. So again, we're still in the process, but next screen, please. I do have some dates for you. So the next time we're going to get together for one of these is November 29th. Put that on your schedule, please. We'll do two of them again. We'll do a daytime and an evening on November 29th. And one of the big key things that evening is we, the board, are going to bring to you the motion that we're going to ask for you to vote on December 4th. We want to get it into your hands as quickly as we can. We haven't crafted it yet. We've begun crafting it. It has multiple parts. But November 29th, 2 meetings, back here, daytime, evening, and you'll have a copy of the motion that we'll ask you to vote on December 4th. The voting date, second bullet point, December 4th, immediately following the church service. Please keep in mind 2 things. Number 1, per our Constitution, you have to be a member to vote because it's a sale of a property. You have to be over 18. We'll be carding you when you come in. And not all of you, let's be honest. Yeah, it won't take long. It won't take long. And per our Constitution, members must be present to vote. So you got to be in the building to vote. So now, those are known dates, unknown dates, the date of the sale. Well, if it was voted in a positive manner, that would be to determine. It would likely be sometime in March. And because of that, that's why we've been telling the other organizations that use our building, plan on March 15th to be the date you have to exit by. Eagle Brook says their renovation, and they would do an extensive renovation. Their renovation takes about 6 months, and then their first services, or our first services here, as Eagle Brook Church, Maplewood Campus, would be sometime next fall. So September, October, November is when that would happen. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to rest my voice. What questions, comments, or concerns do you have? Again, because we're recording, we ask that you speak into the microphone. Help Keith get his steps in.
I don't have them in yet today. While they're thinking of questions, I've been debating whether or not I wanted to say this or not, but I think I'm going to. You said how they didn't come to us, we went to them. This has been something on my mind for 10 years. I've been struggling with this option for our church for 10 years. I kind of pushed it hard last year. It was voted down by the board. Between that no vote in this fall, I have actually a couple friends that approached me and says, you know, has your church ever thought about being an Eagle Brook campus? I thought, wow. So even though you say, you know, God hasn't given us an answer, I felt like he's been prompting me to bring it up again. And so I just wanted to share that. I don't have anything to say to that. Ken.
If I'm reading the slides that you had up there correctly in that, if Anchor Ministries doesn't come and use this facility, really the kitchen crew really goes away, because that's the primary focus that we've been servicing for quite a while now. Am I reading that correctly?
So you're talking about if we were to become an Eagle Brook?
Yes.
So yeah, their answer is that they don't do meal service, they don't do meals, so they would not think that the kitchen would get much use, if any. That's correct.
Unless Anchor Ministries elects to join Eagle Brook, right?
So I can't speak for Eagle Brook, but what they said is that individual churches choose their community partner. So if there was a community partner chosen by this church and there was a meal component and it met with Eagle Brook's ministry parameters, which is to be an Acts 2 church and to tell people about Jesus and save souls. Sounds good.
I don't know. I'm just trying to figure the pieces out, so.
Dan, I don't know if I should put you on the spot, but are the Wednesday meals necessarily tied to Anchor Ministries? I guess I didn't view it that way, because we've been doing meals long before Anchor was helping out with our kids.
I'll just share what I shared this morning with the group. It was helpful for a lot of folks. As president of Anchored, owner of Anchored, and my family, and many of you that help out, I'm not concerned about Anchored Ministries in this whole conversation. I'm involved with Eagle Brook in conversation about what if we would be the ministry that this campus would choose. So that is in conversation. Whether there'd be room in this building for it and use this kitchen, that'd be cool, and I think that'd be a strong emphasis that I would have for that, because we know we can do other nights. We've done Thursday night before when Life Point needed Wednesday night. Eagle Brook will need Wednesday night, so we could do another night if there's space in the building. We're also flexible. We're not going to be territorial about that. We just want to make sure the ministry happens. And so we could be a ministry partner that has a different place where we do our meals. I'd love to have the same kitchen crew that would help us, and the same volunteers that would help us, plus a whole bunch more volunteers that Eagle Brook might have, and even maybe other ways they would help us. So Anchored Ministries can also do this totally independent if necessary, if the Lord leads us to do it that way, to the same people. Keep in mind, these kids that we have are not necessarily the ones that ever fit even into the traditional Life Point ministries, right? That's been quite a struggle at times. And they certainly may not be the kind of kids that fit traditionally into the traditional Eagle Brook type of ministries. Some of them will be ready, and we'd like to bring them in. Those that aren't, we're more of a support group that allows for lots of kinds of flexibility with people's emotions and in their trauma and in their not able to follow rules. Rules bring trauma to some of these kids, and so you have to know how to love them in a way that just comes along beside them, and so that's what we do. It's a very interesting thing. Eagle Brook's intrigued by that. They said, we need that kind of ministry to get to this community, which we want to get to. So I'm excited about, I'm not concerned about if Anchor's going to get pushed out or anything. It's going to be in dialogue, something that God's going to work out in my mind to where it's going to make it even more excellent if it goes this way. If it doesn't, we'll independently have God make it more excellent. We definitely need more help, though, for sure, and I'm encouraged with that. So the meal part is a joint thing. Anchored is youth ministry, and Molly and my daughter Kelly, who's on in charge of the children here now, that's the Life Point piece. And so we collaborate together, the meals. That's a together thing. But Anchored, is a big piece of that as well. So does that help? Any questions on that, Ken?
That's for the sake of the video. Can you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just want to get you on video.
It answers my question, but it doesn't go far enough for the answers that I need. It's a wait and see type thing, and I guess that's where I'm going to have to be for right now.
Other questions?
Steve's got one over here.
At this point, is the board considering ourselves in negotiations? We have not started negotiations. Has anything been decided?
We are in initial, what was the word you used? I'm sorry.
Negotiations.
Thank you, negotiations. From the standpoint of, we said, Eagle Brook, would you be interested? They came and they talked and they met with their board and they said, we would be interested. And then they said, here are the steps that are taken from the big picture negotiation. That all occurs after a congregational vote is taken. So,
Can I add to that?
yeah.
I would say we are not in specific negotiations. For example, there was a particular topic brought up this morning that GEAD wanted added to a memorandum. We have looked at their documents, their standard documents, or I should say, let me rephrase that. We're in the process of looking at the standard documents that represent dual representation. That's kind of redundant. Help me out, Brad. But we are not, I would say we are not in the negotiation process. Are you looking for specific negotiations on specific ministries? We are not at that point, no.
Right.
Definitely not, no.
Right.
Follow up, otherwise Bonnie has a question.
I think as I've been to all the listening sessions, and I think I can safely say that we've moved on whether the music is to our taste at Eagle Brook, that sort of thing. There's an enduring concern in this congregation for the missionaries that we support and our sister immigrant congregations. First question, has Eagle Brook said they will or will? Now, I'm not talking about their model. I understand it's not their model. Have they said at this point they will or will not do anything for the missionaries that we currently, directly for the missionaries that we currently support?
So Jim Johnson was one of the three that were here the last time. I forget his title, but he is in regard to that support. And he made mention of the fact that they would want to do something for our missionaries and that there was a precedence of that. They'd done that previously. Sister churches, from the standpoint of using the building, they're pretty straightforward. There would not be an agreement in that regard.
Have they at this point declared, yes, we will support your missionaries for a certain
they
amount
have not,
or a time
that would
period?
be, okay, so no. So what they said is, in the past, we did something for missionaries. We didn't just cut missionaries off. What that would look like here would be part of future negotiation following the congregational vote.
So they have not committed either way on
They have not committed
direct support of our missionaries.
Let me re-answer. I want you to be comfortable with my answer. No. In regard to our missionaries at our church, there's been no commitment to our missionaries, nor has there been discussion in regard to our missionaries, other than to say, we have missionaries. And they said, well, in the past, we worked something out to help them transition away from a support standpoint.
I have more, but I'll come back to it.
No, keep going.
If it's on this topic, I would do it now.
Not directly.
Okay.
All right, I'll trust you.
So, yeah, that would be part of future conversation. Once the vote was taken, if the vote was approved, that would be part of future conversation. It certainly is on the list.
We do not have a question back here by Bonnie, so if you want to continue, Steve or Ann, you're welcome to do so.
It's pretty hard to go to the vote as a congregant if they have not committed either way. They will support our missionaries. They will not support our missionaries directly. And I think that same principle would apply for a couple other issues. I know it's not their model, but in part of negotiations, have they committed to space or finances that will allow us to transition our sister congregations to perhaps their own facilities if they are not going to commit to meeting space for them.
To the best of my knowledge, based on the conversation we've had, the answer is no.
So at this point, we could still negotiate for a financial piece that would transition our sister congregations.
Yes, we could negotiate for everything. So help me understand, because I'm one of the multiple people in the room that would be part of this. What would that look like to you? What would you ask Eaglebrook for in regard to, let's say, TKBC?
Well, I understand that their model does not allow them to meet here on Sunday. So it seems to me the obvious thing would be to give them a cash amount that they could then help them to go find another facility.
Okay.
Yes, money.
Okay. So the question for the video was, do they need the money? We don't know. We don't know. We don't support them now financially, other than, building use. Don't take this comment wrong. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. For the most part, I'm pretty certain, I'm looking at our business manager, for the most part, I'm pretty certain that the entities that use our building cost us money. And that's never been a factor for us. We're not in this to make money, right? We're not in this to make money. But my point is simply, we don't support them now. They would need to find a new home to meet in.
But we do support them now. We provide the facilities, the heating, and so on.
You're right. I'm sorry. We don't support them financially. That's what I meant. Thank you. Should have clarified that.
Are you wanting to talk?
Parnell?
Yep. No, that's fine.
TKBC does give us a contribution towards the general fund, usually monthly, but it's nothing that we have said, you need this amount. They have chosen the amount, and they do contribute that to us monthly.
So, is it fair to say it covers some of the costs, maybe not all the costs? I don't know. We have never sat down with pencil and paper and figured this out. Exactly. It's an expense to us, probably.
Thank you. At the end of the meeting last time, you had said it was important to you, Northcutt's and the staff members. Have they done anything with that? I took that to mean severance packages, things like that. Is Eaglebrook able to offer anything like that to our staff?
So they are not. They are not. Because this is our staff. Our staff is our staff.
Is that on the last slide?
It is.
Well,
and we
go
can jump to that.
Last slide.
So hang on, let's jump to the last slide. Do Pastor Ben update. So the question was, would Eaglebrook offer anything from a severance standpoint? We have no reason to believe that's the case. In our previous meeting with them, and I think when they were here the first Tuesday night, they said LifePoint staff is LifePoint staff, Eaglebrook staff is Eaglebrook staff. If LifePoint wanted to apply at Eaglebrook, they certainly could. They would not spurn that. Gary made the comment, she said, employment is not guaranteed, but you're looked favorably upon. Okay? So let's talk about Ben, and then I'll address more your question about severance. So you all got an email and or a letter with my signature on it. And that was a real hard decision to make that evening, which then led to that email. But just to make certain, in case you didn't see it, what we said is, as a board, we realized that because of financial pressure, we needed to let our staff go, the vast majority of our staff. So effective the end of the year, all but one staff member, Steve, who has agreed to stay on at least for the time, because we need someone to keep the building running, will no longer be employed here at LifePoint as of December 31st. So in regard to Pastor Ben, last night we had a special board meeting, at which point we granted him a transitional sabbatical. So what does that mean? Well, this Sunday will be Pastor Ben's last Sunday in the pulpit. And I hear there may be a baptism even. That'd be cool. But this will be his last Sunday preaching this Sunday, at which point he will be on transitional sabbatical. So he and Jess and the kids can have more time to spend in regard to their transition and whatever that looks like. I know very little about that. We know very little about that. I'm not going to presuppose that I can give you details. That's something he should share with you, okay? But so that's going to happen. So this Sunday will be Ben's last Sunday preaching. Last traditional service as we know it will be Christmas Eve, which is the 24th this year. I always love that joke. Sorry, just amusing myself. Be Christmas Eve. No Christmas Day service, no New Year's Day service. That was already planned on the calendar. Next service then would take place January 8th, right here. Going to be different, going to be lay-led. What does it look like, Ross? You want to know what it's going to look like? I have no idea. It's going to be lay-led. But I can tell you that Dan Munson, Peter Vogt, and Dr. Mike Holmes are just three of the people that have said, hey, I'll help fill the pulpit. So we got options that way. Okay? In regard to severance, there is severance that the board, prior to that email, it was a week ago Tuesday at the board meeting when we made that decision, we discussed as the board severance. That has been shared with Ben. Hang on. Let me process this. My continual prayer is that the Holy Spirit will guard my tongue.
Are you wondering about the specifics you should share or not?
I am. I'm not going to share specifics, but I'm going to tell you this. We have X amount of money, and if we do the math backwards, we're out of money. We would love to give Ben a huge severance. We don't have the money. We don't. Or we could give a huge severance and then shut the doors. And he's aware of this. I got Bonnie nodding, Parnell's nodding. What we would like to do versus what we financially can afford to do are two different things. So last night at our board meeting, someone said, could we take a special congregational offering for Pastor Ben and his family? And people said, yeah, we could do that. So maybe we'll do that. So without going into details, we've offered him a severance, monetary severance. We've also told them they have continued use of the house until such a time as Eagle Brook would own the property, which again is estimated to be sometime in March. Does that answer your question? Yes, that's correct. Our understanding is that Eagle Brook would not assist with a severance for any of our staff. Not something they do, yeah.
Just to let you know, we did commit to the offering this morning. We basically said we were going to take an offering. Didn't we this morning? Those that were there this morning, didn't we say that? Dan committed to it. And Brad turned to me and said, did we commit to that? And I said, yes, we did.
Okay. So I hope you come Sunday, because afterwards we're going to have cupcakes and we're going to celebrate Pastor Ben. This is happening quickly, isn't it? Right? This is happening quickly. I want to remind you, it's been going on for a long time. It's just kind of speeding up now. Go ahead, Steve.
Now, why would a severance package have to come from Eagle Brook? It could come from us with funds that Eagle Brook pays us in addition to well, basically it would become part of the debt that they are assuming. So it would be, then the severance would be from us.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't pay for it right now, but with the additional funds that we would negotiate Eagle Brook to help us do right by the pastor and, say, the music minister.
I have an answer. What's the available balance? 71,000? 73,000. We have an equity line on the church. We have an outstanding available balance we can draw of 73,000. Okay? I'm going to speak frankly with love. We're spending $20,000 a month to keep the doors open. We're spending roughly $20,000 a month more each month than we're taking in. This is not a plea from me to you to give more. You give. You are givers. Our money issue is a symptom of our bigger issue. Here's my point. It costs us $20,000 a month with our full staff to keep the doors open. Am I wrong, Brad? Brad, come on up. It is right? Okay, my business manager has confirmed my numbers. Roughly, we're spending $20,000 a month more than we're taking in. If the giving is consistent through November and December, that's going to be 40 grand of the 73 grand we're going to spend. That leaves us, let's say, $33,000. Now we're in January, we have a parse down service. It costs about $10,000 a month, not including staff, to run the building. We've got $30,000, not including giving that might continue to come in. January, February, March, that's $30,000. So the question, why couldn't we give a bigger severance out of the money we have and then Eagle Brook's going to pay us back? It's because out of the money we have, we're trying to be good stewards and spend it to be able to service the church as best we can. Oh, thank you. I forgot about that. We have $73,000, but surprise, life happens and we've got about a $11,000 furnace bill we have to pay. So 73 minus 11 is 62. Let's say it costs us 40 to go through the year. That's $22,000, not allowing for continued gifts. That's $22,000. Costs us $10 a month, $10,000 a month to stay open.
How about a second mortgage that then is rolled into the liability that becomes Eagle Brook's?
Well, that's something the board could look at. I'll speak personally for myself.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't be comfortable without taking on more debt, which then Eagle Brook would pay off. They're aware of our financial position. Part of the due diligence that had been done coming up to now is we have shared our finances with them. So they have a ballpark figure of what costs would be.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was just going to say, Brad took the words right out of my mouth. We would not qualify because they would, a good financial institution would know what we're doing, and they'd say, you can't get any more money. That's it. It wouldn't qualify. Other questions?
That's a good point. Did you catch that? It was a fair question. Why don't we take out a second loan and use that money as severance? We don't qualify for a second loan. Because you know how they qualify us? Members and giving. We don't qualify for a second loan. Thanks, I had forgotten about that. Sue. Okay, again, for the purpose of the video, it was noted that if we were to want to take out the loan that we have now, we wouldn't qualify for it. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a question about the bylaws and the Constitution, and I'm sure you must have discussed that, but I don't understand. It says under church property, Article 9, should a condition arise at any time in the future when, for any reason, the church cannot continue, the church property shall be transferred to the Baptist General Conference doing business as Converge Worldwide or its successor. So how do we, if that's the case and we follow the bylaws, you must have discussed that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if Brad or Ross want to say something to that, but I have an answer too.
So our bylaws say that if at any time the church cannot continue, the property transfers to Converge. Brad?
Yes, it does, if ever we don't continue. Converge, I've been in meetings with both Converge North Central, and I've been in meetings with Eagle Brook and Converge National, and they don't want the building.
battery die?
Hello? Let's try that. Okay. I've had meetings with Converge North Central and meetings with Converge National.
I think the batteries are dying. 1 second, batteries are dying. We'll get new batteries.
Here comes new batteries.
How many are there? We need to buy a new mic.
Brett?
Thank you. Okay. A couple of things here. As a board, we have talked about this, and we want to be the ones, and we want the congregation to be the people who choose what happens to us. If we just play out the string, first thing is, we still have a $200,000+ debt that if we play out the string until we're out of money, means we're probably done at the end of the year. We probably don't continue into January, February, March if we're going to be turning the place over to Converge, because they would not want us to go any further in debt. Converge does not have an interest in the building. If we were to give it to them, my guess is, this is a guess, my guess is that they would probably turn around and give it to Eagle Brook, because they're a Converge church. There are probably no other Converge churches that would be interested in the building. They could turn around and try to sell it. We wanted to control our destiny. I, for one, did not want to end with an empty building sitting here. That's why we didn't choose to go that route. Yeah.
So as he said, we did go to Converge North Central and Converge National and basically told them what was going on. Were they fine with that? We basically had them sign off on it, so to speak, and give us permission to do that. So good point in the bylaws. We feel like that. Anything you want to add to that, Ross? Or
I would, what's the thought behind your question? On the mic.
I think she just want to make, well, here.
Because I want to make certain that your concerns or your thoughts are addressed.
Yeah, he answered it to answer my concern. I was wondering if we were following the bylaws.
Got it.
In fact, if Converge had any choice, we had to give it to them because our bylaws say it. But you said they signed off on it and so
Absolutely.
forth.
And I get that you've gotten a lot of information and you've been at some meetings, not at others. That was something we shared right away in our first Tuesday meeting listening session, is we got to follow the rules, right? And that's certainly one of them. So go ahead, Steve.
Now, Brad pointed out that we as a congregation would like a decision on how our legacy continues, how this building is passed on. The board has mentioned at least 2 options that came up. We as a congregation were not given any details. We don't,
Sure.
we weren't able to make that decision. I do know that there was another, I passed on to the Board of Stewards an inquiry from a realty on behalf of a Koren Baptist church, and from the little that I know, they were offering a seven-figure amount for the building. Can you describe why that is not being...
Yeah, I'd be happy to address those. So let's, excuse me. I mentioned we didn't get the 10 Commandment lightning bolt moment. Yes, this is what we need to do. So we were going down other options. We were saying, oh, this might be an option. There were 2 other churches. One approached us No, they both approached us. The one, guard your tongue. I can't give a lot of details. It's inappropriate to give details. So I'm going to preface this by saying I've never lied to you before. I won't lie to you now. The one of them was not a positive move. The one church says, we have a church a lot like yours. We're losing people, and we got less money than you do. So what if we came in, doubled the size of your service, and over a 3-year period, you give us the building? And that'll give us time to enact our ministry. That wasn't the right option. That wasn't the right option. I'm keeping it high level. The second one approached us several years ago to ask about renting space at the time when we had the largest Karen church in the nation. And we said, we don't have the space to do it. They came back to us coincidentally last spring. They said, hey, we're still looking to rent space. And we said, we might have a better option. Let's talk. And when you go to their website, they say, we're moving. And they describe where they're moving to, though they don't know where it is yet.
Ross, just to clarify, that's a non-Karen situation. I thought I heard you say Karen.
I'm sorry, that's a non-Karen. Yeah, non-Karen. They said, we're moving. And on their website, they have the vision for what they're moving to looks like. And you know what it looks like? And we said, we got a better idea. This is our God moment. Thank you, God. Here it is. Come, talk to us. And they came and they talked to us, and we said, isn't this amazing? It matches what you said, except for one thing. They wanted to be west of Rice Street. They had a box. They said, our new place is going to be somewhere in this box. And Rice Street was their east-west boundary. You follow me? And they said, that's not a deal breaker. You're like a mile away. And we said, I know, right? And they came and they talked to us. And Randy and Hillary and I had a meeting with them. And then they came and they walked through the building, and they were all excited about it. Brad took them on a tour of the building. But here's what happened. We would meet. They would be excited. We would say, all right, talk and reach back to us. And they didn't. And the board said, all right, Ross, call them again. Call them, Ross. They don't get it. And I called them. And they said, what are you calling about? And I said, well, I don't know. You want to take a building tour? Yeah. 10 people came. 10 people came. Hour and a half, Brad showed them everything from top to bottom. Woo! They were excited. We could do this here. We could do that here. Brad said, awesome. Next step, you've got Ross's cell phone. Call him. They didn't call. You want to dance or don't you? So finally I called him a third time. He said, yeah, what's up? I said, well, we felt like maybe there was a relationship here for us to pursue. And he said, well, we've been thinking about it. And we think maybe we need multiple campuses around the Twin Cities. So what would you think if we used your building as a church for like a year and then renovated it maybe into a school or offices or something else? And we said, that's not it. I'm giving you a little more detail than I should. My point is, we've done a lot of due diligence. Now, did you hear the voicemail? Steve heard a voicemail. A gentleman who is a realtor left a voicemail, said, hey, I'm paraphrasing, I didn't hear the voicemail. But others, Dan, have you talked to him? Dan has spoken. If I say anything inaccurate, let me know. Gentleman is a retired realtor, has relationships with the Karen, said there might be a Karen group that could maybe write a check and buy your building. We said, oh, that's something. That was when I found out about it Monday.
Last week, wasn't it?
I think it was, when did you hear the voicemail, Steve? Friday. Got it. Maybe?
So the board at this point in time feels like we're going down this track. We can't be going down 2 tracks. I'll share this at a high level too. The search committee was given 2 tracks last time. I don't know if everybody remembers that. One was find a pastor, one was a possible merger situation. At the first meeting, we found out it was almost impossible to go down 2 tracks at a time. This train has left the station on the Eagle Brook track. We're waiting for that answer. If that crash and burns, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe there'll be this other option. I don't know. But the train has left the station for Eagle Brook. We'll see if that happens or not. We can't do that. Okay, now I'm speaking as an individual. I'm not speaking I guess I'm speaking as a board member. I wouldn't feel good with how far down that track we are with Eagle Brook to just say, oh, by the way, we got somebody else here, $2 million. You going to give us 2.5? I would not feel comfortable with that.
You're next, Dave.
I think a lot of people in the congregation are wondering, why did the train leave the station before the congregation knew about it and didn't have any input till right at the end? It's just a second. It's a little bit like shocking to suddenly hear all this. I know you guys have been dealing it.
That's my analogy. It's not the
I know you guys have been dealing with this for a long time, and you're probably just tired of it. But for many of us, it's so new and, jarring, and we haven't had the opportunity to deal with it. And to us, it's like we really feel untrusted or something that we weren't given more information earlier.
Brad, did you have a comment?
I just want to say something real quick, and then I'll give it to Brad. That analogy was probably a bad analogy, okay? What was the last thing you just said? Oh, trust the board. There are a lot of things that are said in the hallway of this church that should not be said. Some things that have gotten back to the board. And you know what? You're absolutely right. There's a trust factor. It works both ways.
Okay, but here's my response. My response is this. My response is I'll give my response after Brad gives his.
Okay. Well, let's look around us even sitting here tonight. This isn't a surprise. The choir. 15 years ago, I joined the choir. There were 30 plus of us. 2 weeks ago at Wednesday night, there were 7 of us standing around the piano trying to sing the Hallelujah Chorus. Wait for Christmas and December 18th to see if we succeeded. Walk the Sunday school hallways. Where we are shouldn't be a surprise. Now, if we had announced a year ago, gee, we're really not thinking that this is going to make it, it would have been a self-fulfilling prophecy. How can we have Ben and the people working Sunday mornings and the people teaching Sunday school, how can they be going at it hard, working towards the kingdom, knowing that we might not make it? We couldn't go forward for the past year telling you all, hey, we thought at the board meeting, we voted at the board meeting the other night that we're going to keep going, but maybe we shouldn't. We can't do Sundays like that.
You elected us as your board to lead you. You have all the power. We've been doing the work. We've been seeking God's guidance. We feel this is where God is leading us. As a board, we have a variety of comfort level. Keith is confident God was telling him a year ago September, a year ago August, 2 years ago. Keith is confident God was telling him this is what had to happen. Other board members are hating this because they don't want to lose this. You elected us. We've been doing our due diligence, following God's guidance where He gives it to bring us to this point. You ultimately have the power. On the 29th, we're going to show you our motion, give you the opportunity to look at it, and on December 4th, you get to vote if you want to go forward with the sale to Eagle Brook. This is not an easy decision. Microphone for Ann, please. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to say, like, have we been in contact with this other church that's given us money or offered us money? It was Friday. It was Friday, okay. But I will say, as somebody, just a personal opinion, it sounds like, hey, Eagle Brook, these 5 things are important to us, and they said no, maybe. And so I feel like if we had an option of something that could actually give us money, maybe that severance something would come into play. Maybe all the places wouldn't have to leave. Maybe. So I do care about Eagle Brook's feelings as well, but only a little bit when I compare to our family that could use a severance package or our groups that still meet here. Is that something we're willing to explore at all, or we're just going to do a vote and then maybe explore?
I'll give my answer, and then I'd love to hear other board members' responses. We're open. We're open. But this is where we see God leading us. This is what we're bringing to you. It was Monday there was this voicemail. We know very little about this guy. We don't know if he's reputable. We don't know if they have money. What we do know is that he says he's representing a Karen church. Not anti-Karen, but this would become a Karen church. Maybe that's God's plan. Maybe that's God's plan. And what do we do with the money? Well, what do we do with the money, Brad? Does it go to Converge?
Brad is talking.
The shorter answer is no. We haven't done anything in regard to it other than be told, hey, a guy left a voicemail. Are we against it? No. Are we in favor of it? No. We don't know enough. But we feel like this is where God is leading us now. We're coming to you. You get to decide.
The day that we close, the way that I read it, our assets and our liabilities would go to Converge if we cease to exist.
So, clarifying, let me say it a little louder, and you tell me if I'm clarifying it correctly. The day we close, if we sell to a non-Converge church or another church like that, our assets would go to Converge. Is that correct?
Yes. That's my understanding.
Per our Constitution and bylaws. Okay.
So we really wouldn't have the 2.5 million. It would be Converge's 2.5 million or whatever. Not once you close. No.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So I have a follow-up too. I don't think people are saying that you guys have not done your job. Well, maybe some people. Okay. I'm sorry, but okay. Sorry. Well, I'm sorry.
It wasn't you.
Yeah, okay.
Well, not.
It's not you, it's him.
Maybe it was.
No, but I want you to know that we appreciate what you've done and all the work you've done. I was just trying to express that for many of us, we'd like to have known a little more time to process this. Yeah.
I'll address that. I'll address that. Brad, what was it like for you to not share this with Sue for the last year? HE double hockey sticks.
We don't want that on mic.
Please know that during this entire thing, one question that kept coming up was, what is the point we reach where we, A, determine that this is how God is leading us, and then B, say, okay, now we can communicate it. So the final step to determine if this is where we felt God was leading us was for the Eagle Brook board at their board meeting to sign off on it. They did that on a Tuesday night. I got a text on a Tuesday night saying our board says full speed ahead. Wednesday morning, we informed the staff. There's the first to inform. You guys were next. When did I inform you? That's Sunday, right? Our quarterly meeting was Sunday.
Yep.
So the last sign that this was the way God was leading us was on a Tuesday night. The staff found out Wednesday morning, you found out Sunday afternoon. All of the organizations that use our building found out Sunday to like Wednesday. We started reaching out to them. We haven't been trying to keep anything from you. It's been killing us to not share it. But you got to reach at a point where it's appropriate to share.
Once it did get out, after you guys knew, I heard from multiple sources outside of the church. So if we had gone to the congregation, let's say a year ago, and say, we're thinking about this, the first quarter of last year, we would have been done. Because there would have been multiple things going on. People say, I hear you shutting down. Oh, I got a great idea for you. You have to trust us that we did share it with you at the absolute earliest time.
I remember a Christmas concert ago where Mike Holmes came to the congregation and said, the board is looking at these 3 options. That was a year ago. That was a year ago. He was saying, here are our 3 options. Continue as we are, or plan B or plan C. He laid it out at Christmas, at a Christmas concert where my in-laws were. They didn't need to know anything about that. But it was broadcast to everybody that this was where the board was headed. This is not new information, that we were struggling. It's not new. The fact that Eagle Brook said on Tuesday of this past month that, yes, we are wanting to work with you. Yes, that is new information. But the fact that the board has been dealing with this for so long, that is not new information at all. And it's painful to hear you say that it's new. It's painful, Anne. I'm sorry, but it's like I have been his support for so long, and it's painful to have you question so many times the same question about how we're going to treat the people in this church. He cares about this church as much as you do, and he cares about the people who use this church. And to think that Eagle Brook doesn't care and that they have a ton of money just to give away is naive. They're a church. Every church has to count their pennies. They don't have, money to just throw at us. They are a church. They want to do the things that are working. What we're doing is not working. And who knows what God has planned for this church and for them. Maybe the answer is to close down here so that they can be in a different location that is better for them, that meets more of those people's needs. This is the end, but seeds have to die in order to grow. That's what happens.
You've had your hand up twice. You're not allowed to defer 3 times.
You've been a member of our small group. A year ago, I started asking the small group, pray for the board. I couldn't say why, but God knew. And this is what we were talking about a year ago. Not all of us knew we were in trouble, that we needed to change direction, that we weren't meeting God's commission for us. We didn't know where to go, but we weren't totally united. Some of us were saying, oh, well, let's just keep plugging along, you know, or let's add contemporary music, or, you know, still we were trying strategies, changing strategies. But when we went to Eagle Brook's association, it's not Eagle Brook Church, it's their ministry to other churches. Wow, we came back and we said, we can do this, but we don't have the people. We really don't have the people. It was too much too late. and we were energized and wanted to make that move, and then we realized. And that's when the board became united. When we broke down our stereotype of what Eagle Brook was, when we realized that we had been jealous of their success. Why are we jealous of kingdom business? We're all in the same church. And for us as a board, it wasn't like this is the end, and then they begin. This was our only option we saw currently that would allow us to continue our legacy of ministering for Christ's work. And it's hard. This is hard for us as board members. Real hard.
I'll bring it right over. One of the things that I think I can share this, that Ben shared with the board the other night, is he said, end well. Ben told us to end well, W-E-L-L. In other words, don't die. Transition at a well pace.
So Tracy, I'm sorry to hurt you. I didn't mean to hurt you. None of this is meant to hurt you or hurt anyone. It's just, and maybe I'm just dumb. I didn't realize how extensive it was, and I missed that I missed the Christmas thing. I wasn't here for that, and I think we were in Canada for the mid-year board meeting, so we missed that, and and also I realized I have the wrong email in the Trinity, the LifePoint directory. Thank you, that was the word I was looking for. So I didn't get that email. But I have been coming every week, and I have been ministering every Wednesday night and so forth. So I think maybe I just, maybe the world passes me by. I don't notice all those kind of things. I don't get involved in all those conversations about it. So I'm sorry, I knew that the board was struggling with things, because Bonnie did say we're struggling things, but she couldn't say what. So so it was a surprise to me. It was a surprise, because I didn't know there were any things going on with Eagle Brook or anybody, you know, those other churches. So that was a surprise to me. So for some of us, we were watching a show called Manifest, where this plane got lost for 5 years, and then all the people came back, and for 5 years their families had been going on with their lives, and all of a sudden they have to realize, oh, their families have new relationships, their families have grown up, everything's different for them, and maybe I'm like those lost people, because to me all that was, it was surprising. And I know that you've had to probably sleep next to somebody who was tossing and turning, and you didn't necessarily know what it was about. So it's been a struggle for you too. and realize that we're just starting to deal with it. So, yeah.
You bring up a good point. I've shared with the board, I've been thinking about this for 10 years. And then we started really, and I'll get to the rest of you real quick here. Then the rest of the board kind of became aware of this option maybe, a little over a year ago, and so they've had a chance to, let's call it grieving. I guess I'd call it grieving. And then, you know, we all wanted to get it out to you as soon as we possibly could, but we didn't feel like we could really do that until Eagle Brook's board had signed off on it. And literally, you knew within less than a week, actually days, and actually you might have known sooner, just with Steve knowing on Wednesday. So anyways, there's no perfect time. We've never landed a 747 before. We're trying to land a 747 on 5,000 feet with no engines. It's hard to do. Bad analogy again, probably.
Several months ago, before we had gotten to the point we got to with Eagle Brook, I said to the board, can we start talking about this with the congregation? And several board members who are way smarter than me went, no. Because what do you say? What do you say? Hey, we're a dying church and we don't know what to do, and we might do this and we might do that. And I didn't like that. I thought, oh man, let's get it out there. We don't want to surprise people. In hindsight, I'm glad I listened to those people. Here's why. Here's what I've heard from people. Eagle Brook hates old people. Eagle Brook is a white people church. Eagle Brook doesn't do weddings and they don't do funerals. That's probably because they hate old people, right? Do you hear what I'm saying? None of that is true. But there's this misconception. Bonnie talked about the us versus them thing. And we're a family here, so I'm going to share this with you. One night in a board meeting, Bonnie was saying, as others had said, it's not Eagle Brook, it's Eagle Brook. Ugh. I said, Bonnie, I got a question for you. Why do you say it like that? Like it's a curse word. And Bonnie's a genius. And it hit her, and she said, it's because I'm jealous. I'm jealous. This is a Converge Baptist church that is saving souls for Christ. Has had thousands of salvations and thousands of baptisms over the last 5 years, let alone in their history. We told you as soon as we could. If we had said something sooner, like I that evening thought was smart, we would have had nothing to tell you other than to cause you to say, well, I don't know what's going on, but I want to get out of here. We weren't trying to hide anything from you. We let you know as soon as we could. Brian.
I guess I just want to make a couple comments. I've struggled with this. And it was, one of the last board members to kind of come along. And I've still been struggling with it, even though this is the way we need to go. And when I came to that first listening session, and I heard them talk about what's going on at Eagle Brook, I got really excited. This church will be full on day one. They will have kids programs, they will have volunteers. They have said, and a lot's been talked about the Eagle Brook model. From the top down, they run their services. They empower their people to volunteer in all kinds of ways, and they support them. Their administration is not going to say, we're going to do this ministry, we're going to do this ministry, we're going to do this ministry. Their people say that. And if it falls in with their motto, or whatever they call it, of reaching people for Christ, yeah, go do it. We'll support you. So I think a lot of people, I feel, are sitting here, well, what's Eagle Brook going to do? Whatever their people want to do. That's what I hear when I hear them talk. at their individual campuses, they have all kinds of volunteer programs going on that have come from their people. And when I heard them talk about that, I just got super excited. Our church will be rejuvenated. Our church will be alive. You know, I see Lynette came in here tonight, and it just reminded me back when Andy and Lynette were here, okay? And we had, I don't know, 15, 20 young married couples here, okay? 30 years ago. Those of us that are still here who were in that group are still the youngest large group in our church. No, that's my point. Sure, there are some people younger than us, but it's not a big group like that. We are still it. You know? I mean, that's just what happened, and I'm extremely sad about that. I heard Juanita talk at the meeting about that. She said, I'm heartbroken. But this is the reality. And I'll repeat again, when I came and heard those Eagle Brook people speak about their ministries, and I've been in meetings with them, the nuts and bolts meetings. But when I heard them talk about their ministries, wow, I got excited. And I am excited. And I'm excited about what's going to happen here with this property, with this building. God is going to use it in a way that we just are unable to. And they're very committed and very interested about reaching the neighborhood. And whatever ministries reach out to their neighborhood, they're committed to it. And I'm excited.
This is something that I don't think I've ever done before. This past year has been one of a lot of lost sleep. It's reached the point where if I go downstairs at 3 a.m., Sue knows that I'm going down to wrestle with things. A couple of weeks ago, I was downstairs wrestling with something, and I was reminded of the story of John the Baptist's disciples. John was in the prison, and he was doubting. And John sent, this is in Luke 7, and John sent his disciples to Jesus to ask, are you the one who was to come, or should we expect someone else? And they explained why they're there. So Jesus replied to him, go back and report to John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is preached to the poor. Yeah. I don't want to throw down a gauntlet here, but if you don't want Eagle Brook on December 4th, vote no. And if there's any of us left, we'll figure out what to do next. But we've been there, we've seen, we've heard, and the gospel is preached to the poor.
How many votes does it take to get a yes?
It's a simple majority.
Yeah. So first of all, we have to have a quorum.
Right.
Which is 30% of the voting potential. Brad and I'm sorry, 30% of the voting potential must be present and vote. Brad and I, to the best of our abilities, have figured that number to be, 96 would be the voting potential. Voting potential would be people that are in in the Twin City area, likely to attend church. You know, and quite honestly, I felt that that number 96 is probably overestimated, to be honest with you, but we wanted to have a high number to make sure we had enough presence. So that would be 32, or is it, how do we come up with 29? 29. All right, I'm good at math in my head. So, I mean, we have to have a minimum of 29 people here, Heather Marie, to vote. I think we'll have more than 29, it would be my guess. And then we need a simple majority of those who do vote. Sorry, it's a long-winded way of saying we need a majority of those present.
So to clarify, if you're a member over the age of 18 and you're in the building on December 4th, you get to vote. But per our bylaws, we have to determine what a quorum will be. So a quorum is 30% of the expected, is that right?
The voting potential.
The voting potential. So the voting potential is the members, right? Everyone that's a member. The quorum is deemed to be 30% of that number, which is how many? 29. Of 29, we need a simple majority. Is that 15?
Yes.
14 and 40 would be 20. It's
14
15.
and a half, 15.
So if we only had 29 members present, we would need 15 to vote yes, or 15 to vote no. But again, any member who's in the building gets to vote.
I think it should be pointed out, too, we do have a significant number of non-members that attend church. So there, you know, you may be thinking it's more than 90-some, but oh, you were just raising your hand as the non-member? That's all right. Okay. So, boy, okay. Oh, you too? Okay. I guess this is confession of non-membership right now.
Hi,
but you're
I'm
welcome
Lynette.
to
I'm not a
attend. We're
member.
probably going to
Hi,
put you over
Lynette.
on the side. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, hi, I'm Lynette. I'm not a member. Hi, Lynette.
I'm sorry. I got us off on a little bit of a tangent. Are there other questions or others who would like to speak?
Is it necessary that LifePoint be dissolved in order for this to move ahead? Could we transfer our assets and liabilities, and if there were a cash reserve that we could then administer to do right by the severance packages for pastor and in other ways support the sister congregation, could we maintain our entity in order to administer those funds? I mean, other than that, we would have no.
Yeah, so it takes, what is it, gang? Is it 6 months? 9 months?
What are you talking about?
LifePoint doesn't end on the day of the sale. The day of the
Brad?
sale happens, but then LifePoint continues. The Attorney General gets involved, and you got to file papers and all that kind of stuff.
Hang on, I thought that was going to be, hang on. Steve, do you want to clarify? Maybe give some dates of what you're talking about.
In order to continue with the transition to Eagle Brook, does LifePoint as an entity have to be dissolved? Could LifePoint maintain its existence purely to administer, let's say, funds that might be a result of a sale to Eagle Brook or so on? That way, we could then maintain some of these support sister congregations, disperse sabbatical funds to Ben or whatever.
Okay. Brad? Yeah, who's going to do it? Yeah.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
Let me say this. As we said, following the vote, if the vote is a yes, then future or additional negotiation occurs. But I want to speak frankly. Eagle Brook has shared with us that our staff is our staff, their staff is their staff. Our ministries are our ministries, their ministries are their ministries. I can't speak for Eagle Brook, none of us can. But I would suggest that the likelihood that we put in our head, well, we can get Eagle Brook to kick in X amount, let's make them pay. Let's make Eagle Brook pay. Regardless of the reason, is pretty unlikely. That's why we're going to take a special offering for additional severance for Ben. Okay? So I understand what you're saying about dispersing funds and that kind of thing. You never know what's going to happen, but I would suggest we shouldn't assume that's going to be the case.
I guess maybe my question is, we don't know. Or the answer to my question is we don't know. Are we expecting to get money from Eagle Brook in this transaction? No. So, with what? I don't understand the negotiation. How would we get money when they're taking over our debt? I don't understand the math of that.
So, let me clarify. You're going to vote to sell, whether or not to sell the church to Eagle Brook. We don't know the exact sale price, but it is well below market value. Bonnie tells me from a real estate standpoint, what is it worth? About $3 to $3.5 million. Is it okay? It's well below that. We would sell to Eagle Brook for basically what we owe on it, which is about our loan amount. So let's say roughly $300,000. We're not in this to make money. They're going to take our over our assets. They're also going to take over our debt. Okay?
Are you done? It's my understanding that once, on that closing date, let's just use March 15th as an example, then my understanding is that LifePoint's 501c3 ceases to exist at that point in time. Now, I could be wrong on that.
No, there's a time lag there because then things have to get recorded.
Okay, so for like filings with the state and things like that, there is a period of time. So are you asking then in that period of time, some type of payment could be made? Is that what you're asking?
I mean, we could even transfer, if we had, let's say, cash assets, we sell the church to Eagle Brook or this other Korean church, those assets, could they be held by LifePoint, or we transfer them to another 501c3 that we create that could then support the sister congregations, the missionaries, proper severance packages to the staff, that sort of thing.
Well,
I think the accurate answer is we don't know.
We don't
We
We honestly don't know that. And even if you could, let's just say for argument's sake you could, we're talking then at a severance package that would come after March 15th. That would be way beyond when they
Randy had his hand up first.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're going.
Well, I don't know, you said several things, but I know that if we cease to exist, according to our bylaws, it goes to Converge. They have agreed that it can go to Eagle Brook, presumably because that's a Converge church. And so that gets, I think, well, Brad could probably talk to this, but I think that comes into it too. So if we end up with cash and we're no longer a church, I think it would go to Converge.
The other thing I was going to say real quick is if we get this other church involved, I believe it's a non-Converge church. Is that your understanding?
Steve, I don't know.
Now you're dealing with a whole nother set of things we would need to get permission from Converge North Central, and I'm not sure that they would go for that. And I should probably say that, but we're not 100% certain they would go for that.
I got nothing right now.
Oh, Brad's got nothing from the legal standpoint. Oh, Randy, if you raise your hand, you got it.
Okay, I'm not a lawyer, but I was looking up things about 501c3s dissolving, and apparently they have to give away their assets when they dissolve. But according to you too, it takes a while to dissolve, so they might have a while to give away their assets.
What's our assets? What are you talking about?
Well, say for instance, that church bought us for $2 million. then that would be our assets. And we would be able to pay our loan and pay whatever. But also I wonder, did you have a realtor evaluate this? Or I think there's been different evaluations by insurance people and other things that are anywhere from, well, Bonnie's 3 million all the way up to 18 million. Yeah. So I'd like to know, I know it keeps changing whoever you talk to, so I wonder if it was evaluated.
So no realtors are involved.
No.
There is an attorney involved. We've entered into dual representation. So there's one law office that's representing Eagle Brook and us. Excuse me, would represent Eagle Brook and us. Saves money that way.
Well, we weren't looking to try and make money. We were not trying to get cash for the organization. We were, at least I'll speak for myself and the rest of the board members can speak. I was looking, how are we going to fill these pews? Period.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking to say, oh, the property's worth 10 million. We got to get at least 9.5 for it. That, I got to be honest with you, that never even entered my mind. My mind was, how can we fill this up? I shared this with Ross the other day. I woke up in the middle of the night and I had a dream that this place was full. And it was full, it was a multicultural church. Take it for what it's worth. Anybody else?
Sorry, Keith. Folks, we're all Christians here. The people at Eagle Brook are Christians as well. I mean, our objective is the Great Commission. We're here to be witnesses to bring people to Jesus Christ. Yes, I may have a ministry that is my favorite, and that's what I want to work on. But if it's not bringing people to Jesus Christ, then should that have a priority over the Great Commission that Jesus gives us? No. We want Christ's work to be done in this building and on this property so that as many people are brought to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ as our Savior. We have not done a real strong performance for fulfilling the Great Commission in quite some time, outside of Anchor Ministries and what's been going on with the children on Wednesday nights. We have not been doing that. Eagle Brook has been blessed by God. There is no question. With as fast of growth they overall have had, with the number of people that have come to Jesus Christ as a result of their ministries, God is blessing that ministry, and God is bringing people to Him. Our objective is not to, we got to take care of this, we got to take care of that. I'm here to tell you, God will take care of all these groups. God will take care of the missionaries. It's not our responsibility to do that. God will provide, just as He has provided for each of us in our lives in different ways, in unique ways. God will provide for these groups as well. And I'll give you an example. The missionaries. So our congregation supports the missionaries. Well, who provides the funds to support those missionaries? We do. There's nothing that prevents any one of us as individuals from giving to those missionaries directly rather than to the church. Those missionaries should continue to have funding if we continue to give to them individually instead of just going and giving a contribution to the church and then the church gives a contribution to the missionaries. That responsibility resides on each of us as individuals. It does not have to have a circumvention where it goes through LifePoint. If we want to continue to support our ministry, our missionaries, we have the power to do so. And all I'm saying is that I've joined the board this year. I've seen the struggles that the board has gone through. The board has looked at many options, and we all are in prayer for direction. Well, God has been providing direction over a long period of time, and this year it's come to a hiatus where it's like, you know what? There needs to be a transition. And this is a good transition because we know that Eagle Brook's ministry reaches people, and they will reach people on this site, and they will bring many people to Christ as a result. Eagle Brook shares our values. They are a part of our denomination. It's a, I don't know, but I mean, as we were looking at options, this is a pretty clear option that says this is probably the right option. And their board also agreed with it. There are many things that we will have to deal with even after the vote, but I just want to contend, our goal of being here on this earth is to reach people for Christ. And that's what our focus needs to be during this transition.
I don't think anyone disagrees with that. Yeah, I think everybody agrees with that, and people know that, you know, the representatives from Eagle Brook were wonderful. They, you know, they were great. I think we feel a responsibility towards some groups, like we've been taking care of them and you don't just drop them at the end, or you're even for the pastor, you feel a responsibility to send him off well. And so I think that is probably the concern of not just dropping somebody like out of the blue. It's not that you get against Eagle Brook, you know, or that you don't agree with Eagle Brook's, you don't think that they're Christians in the same way that we are. There's none of that. I think, no, we're not. No, you're not hearing it right. If we have an opportunity to have some extra funds that we can help the pastor and help those groups, is there a way that we can do it that Eagle Brook would agree to? I mean, because they're getting a valuable asset. I know they're taking a loan, $250,000 or whatever. If they're getting something that's worth $3 million or $6 million or $12 million, whatever it is, can they set aside part of that just to help us? Because it's the value. It's the church is Life Points Church. It's Life Points has whatever that value is theirs. Like I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but I can't think of it right now. But yeah, no, I gotta not leave the train one. But I don't know. Even if I give you a loaf of bread, I give you a whole loaf of bread and say, you want to eat this? But could you give part, you know, a piece to this person here who is hungry? You would probably say, sure. It's, you know.
So I would starve because Eagle Brook is giving us only what we need in order to help our debt. So I would starve, and I would have a person over here getting a pittance. I don't think it's Eagle Brook's job to take care of the other ministries. It's God's job to take care of them because we are failing to be able to take care of ourselves.
Well, if you look at it like that, then if you say God will take care of everything, why do we send missionaries? Why do we do? Because we're God's hands. We do those because we're God's hands. And God...
I'm an individual that is going to be able to take care of what I can take care of. I'm not asking a larger entity to do that for me. I don't think it's our responsibility to ask Eagle Brook to take care of us.
Well...
They're wanting to do ministry here the way they do ministry, not because they don't like these other groups, but because what they do is what they can do, and they do it well.
I'm not following, but...
I love your heart, all of everybody's, because we want this church the legacy of this church to continue, and we want to grow Christians, and we want to continue our legacy of missions and things. The reality is Life Point will stop, and so that does but ending well. So I think more like, how do we end well? And what I'm hearing is Eagle Brook really probably won't be a factor to that. So look around the room on a Wednesday night, on a Sunday morning, on Thursday morning coffee, and look at each other and say, how are we going to end well? What can I do? And one thought that just came to my mind is, can we have, you talked about an offering for our staff. I think that's a wonderful thing. Get out your pockets, find your cash, do your things. Can we have an adopted missionary? Let's flood this place with information about, I don't even know anymore who we support. That's on me. Can we flood ourselves with information of who do we support? Like a Compassion International child. Adopt a missionary. Make sure these people are covered. That's on us. I agree with Tracy. That's on us. They are our missionaries and ministries that, unfortunately, because we are ceasing to do the work, because we don't have the money, because we don't have the people anymore, the result of that is we can't support them in the same way we have in the past, and that is painful. So how do we end well? And let's look at each other and say, can I take on, if it was Andy and Lynette still, and it's Lynette, if they were still there, can we take on them? If Varbergs were still in the Philippines, could we take on that? How can we support those people? Who needs it? Who needs to be supported? Let's adopt a missionary. Let's do it. I think your heart is beautiful, and we need to not forget them, and we need not to forget our Spanish church and our Karen church and our Thai church. They are beautiful people, but let's also not assume that they can't stand on their own 2 feet. They are capable people reaching their people for God. And maybe they do need our help, but maybe they can stand on their own 2 feet. But let's end well.
Yeah, I would like to do that.
And then I got to go to Bonnie.
Go to Bonnie, and I don't want to, I don't know if this is appropriate or not. My dad was a missionary, and we got a new pastor at one of the mission stations, and my dad was the engineer, and the pastor, there was no house for the pastor, and he said, this is not right that our pastor has no house. And he went and he gathered his workmen, and he got the tractor to shine light on all night long, every night till the house was built for that man. But it was his hand. He didn't just assume that God would somehow miraculously. He did what he could, and I agree with you. Let's do what we can.
While I'm going back to Bonnie, why don't all of us think of those unique ways that we can either help missionaries, we can help the Karen, we can help our favorite ministry here. Let's figure out a way to do that. And I think what Tracy's saying is we shouldn't be forcing it upon Eagle Brook. We should be doing it ourselves. So let's get the minds going.
One of the things that we talked about in the board is that we would give the information to the congregation in how they can continue to support our missionaries. And that hasn't been brought up tonight, but that information is coming. And like you, we've made a commitment. They're overseas. They don't have a way to drum up some replacement money for that $4,000 a month that we're doing. However, each one of us that's individually supporting by going through LifePoint can designate that individually.
Yeah, I brought it up at the board meeting the other day that Deb and I give to missionaries directly through Converge, and I can certainly share that information with people as time goes forward. And people have a heart for certain missionaries they want to support, they can do that directly.
One of the comments that was discussed this morning was that we will, Mike Holmes mentioned this, that we will provide information for each of the missionaries that we currently support, so that if you do want to support them directly, you can do that. So that info will be coming.
Yeah, one other thing I want to mention too, and Dan, you might help me out on this. I know that I witnessed an Eagle Brook service sometime earlier this year where the entire offering among the Eagle Brook churches went to missions or missionaries, and they had I want to say like a dozen groups it went to. As an Eagle Brook Maplewood campus, we could possibly, I'm making a promise here, we could possibly say, hey, you know, we would like maybe a portion of that one offering that you do, and it's millions of dollars, by the way. We really have a heart for X, what, 1, 2, 3 missionaries. Could we? So we could have an influence on that after we become Eagle Brook. Did I see somebody else's hand up, by the way? I feel like I'm dominating. Sue, sorry about that.
I'm on cold medicine, so I want to say this real quick before I lose it. I forget it. From an asset standpoint, if we sell, we're worth millions of dollars to the right buyer. Who's the right buyer? Senior housing? I would vote for world's largest Chick-fil-A. But does the 150-year legacy of this place go on if we do that? It doesn't. The other thing, anybody who comes in here is not going to move in on the first Sunday and go. If you vote yes to sell this to Eagle Brook, they close down for 6 months to renovate. That costs a lot of money. There's an expense there. I don't know details about Eagle Brook's finances, but I have learned this. Just as there are a lot of misconceptions about Eagle Brook, one of them is that they got a giant pile of money they're sitting on. From a very high-level standpoint, it has been explained that basically they try to spend whatever comes in, goes out the next week. They're not sitting on big piles of money. They are using that money that people give for God's kingdom. Go.
So I'm just going to share a flow of consciousness here from this evening as I've listened, and some of the reflections that are going through my head. Randy, I really resonated with your comments about the good work that Eagle Brook is doing, their focus on the Great Commission. The morning that Brad found that, reflected on that passage and shared it with me, yes, that they are doing good work, and we need to recognize that. I have to acknowledge transition and change is hard, and it's painful. And many of us, Ann, I resonated with your comment of processing, because I'm kind of an internal processor, and it takes me time to work through things. And so I understand those feelings and those reactions, and coming to a point of realizing that this would be different if we go forward with it. I think I know the board has wrestled with that. I just want to say thank you for that leadership and for carrying that on your shoulders throughout this year. And then I just want to share with you a couple conversations that have crossed my experience in the last 2 weeks. So many of you know where I work, and so I crisscross with a lot of folks that over at Northwestern. And so, I crisscross with a lot of people from different churches, different experiences. And I've had 5 different conversations that started at the door of my office with people that I did not ask to come in and talk about this or that. But all of them spoke about someone close to them, a family member, extended family member, a child, youth, high school kids, recent university students that have been involved with Eagle Brook and the transforming work that happened in their lives, and the consistent biblical teaching that they were growing under, unsolicited. I thought, okay, Lord, I'm listening. And then, after the Sunday school hour this last Sunday, we just happened to not have any third or fourth graders in church on Sundays. So Jan, bless her heart, came to help me, and we had no kids. But we had a God-appointed, I believe, conversation with our Karen helper that works in our classroom. And through that conversation, we talked about this change. We talked about what was coming. We tried to explain a little bit about Eagle Brook, and we had been sharing about concerns in our families of individuals that were not walking with the Lord, that were not attending church. And our Karen helper, through that said, well, I want to keep coming. I want to learn. I want to still come. I want my granddaughter to still be here. A commitment to a new church experience. I don't know what God's doing, but I think He's prepared us as a congregation through years of ministry for a launch to something new. And I think about, as I reflected, when I married Brad, I began to realize that I was connecting in with a long church history and generational. And one of the things that has struck me is I think about all those tremendous people that have built into my life in this place. And I think, okay, if I turned to them today and said, this is where we're going, I can see Alan turning to me and saying, we're going to fill that place up, full speed ahead. It's about ministry. It's about, engaging in the Great Commission. And I also want to acknowledge, and I just want to acknowledge something here. Your ministry with our ethnic churches, particularly as I've watched you over the years with working with the Karen, has been a great inspiration to me in terms of understanding cross-cultural ministry. So I understand the depth of concern. And I think all of us as a congregation acknowledge that. But I think God's turning our eyes in a new direction, and perhaps He's going to use those commitments and that caring for those other congregations in a new way. Maybe we're going to be called to help Eagle Brook understand that better. Maybe we're going to be called to minister to some of those individuals that come back. So thanks for listening. Long talk.
No, go ahead, clap. That's probably spirit-led. There was something I was going to say and I totally forgot.
We should recognize our young adult group is here tonight. Turn around and say hi to him. There he is.
Oh, I do remember now. One of the conversations I had before it was even brought to the board was that this person said that the staff at Eagle Brook is trying to figure out how to get to the inner city. And that same person said he felt that this location would be one of those. We're not inner city, but we're within. When I drove last night, it was within what, 2 miles of. It is. That's what I was getting at. I grew up on the east side of St. Paul. It's not the same east side of St. Paul. East side of St. Paul is the inner city. And so this is one location where they want to do this. Downtown Minneapolis is another one. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that's right. Heather Marie, inner city. That's right. Anyways, others.
Pastor Dan's got something.
Been around here for a while. See, 2013, I guess, was the first interim here after Pastor Ken Lewis. And I just want to say you're doing a really good job. I've watched a lot of congregations through the years have these conversations, and how you are having emotion and struggle and difficulty. It's normal, and you're really doing a good job. I think I'm missing something here. So. Okay. So, I personally have some, just interesting, just because I'm congregational consultant, people call me all the time. So, I've been, and this started back in 2013. I was interim pastor there, but it was still the same kind of thing. We had listening, if you remember, we had listening tours back then in all the 5 Sunday school classes. And we were talking about these very same problems and thinking about other church mergers even back then. And people were leaving and struggling, and it was just, I was in the midst of all of that, hearing everyone's heart. And I'm in the midst of it again, hearing probably 35 different people in the last 3 weeks that I've spent hours on, even during COVID. COVID was a great thing. I didn't have to come here, but I could just be at home talking to people all the way through that whole week of COVID. And tears and anger and frustration, and it just needs to be where we can have a chance to get it out. Because if it's repressed, suppressed anger is going to explode. Aggressive anger is going to be horrible and hurt a whole bunch of people. Assertiveness is Holy Spirit led. Assertiveness is what we're having tonight, where we assert pretty strongly with each other. And you can feel it sometimes almost get into something more than assertion, but it comes back down, right? Assertion is a good thing, that we can assert, and because so oftentimes we're passive aggressive, and that's my personality, is passive aggressive. And so I'm always smiling, but underneath it starts to boil. And if I'm not careful, then I'm going to, say something nice, but with a twist, and end up hurting somebody. And so we've had some of that happen. We've had some of that happen on the board. We've had some of it happen in our hallways. We've had some of that happen, but this is not new. Since 2013, since I've been aware of the congregation. And I've been in other congregations since then. Went over and helped First Baptist Coon Rapids close after Pastor Ben came. And then Jay Butcher went over and finished that project while I then came back here to try to help with Pastor Ben. Pastor Ben and I have a unique relationship. We're two sides of we make a complete brain. Because I've got the part that he doesn't have, he has the part that I don't have. And we explored and prayed and listened to so many different places. And finally the board said to us, you have permission to just, for a while. They finally took that back from us as we were getting kind of wild. But we were getting a little bit carried away at times. But we were exploring all kinds of options, everything that would come to the telephone. We would go out and have an interview with people that wanted to possibly merge with us. And we looked at merging the churches that are in the building and thinking there's going to be multicultural. Remember, last Easter, we even had all the listings so that everyone could hear the service in the different languages. Because we were thinking maybe the Spirit was moving that direction at that point in time, because we had some indicators from all 3 of the congregations in the building, even to maybe get some of them on staff with us, and really move forward. But that was not what they're thinking is. That's not what their thinking is. We've found out that wasn't what their thinking is. The other congregations have different reasons they're in our building and different things that they want to do differently eventually. They want their own buildings, or they want some, it wasn't about a merger. So then, so there was just a lot of that. And a lot of excitement thinking, this is the one, And I have so I'm meeting with all of our 12 groups now that are having to figure out what to do now. And so they're all praying for us, and we're praying for them, and God's he's gonna work it out. I was on staff with Eagle Brook 7 years, helping out. I taught the Encompass thing, the thing they do at White Bear Lake. I did it at Spring Lake Park for 7 years. When Spring Lake Park Baptist became the 3rd campus. So I was a part of all of their stuff. I was a consultant with their staff. I still am. And I have no problem. We don't have any issues with Eagle Brook. We don't have any issues. Anchored doesn't have any issues. I'm anchored. We're anchored. We don't have any issues with anything at all. And we're finding that our individual congregations may not either that are here, because they got their own way of what they want to do. I'm Pastor Ohm's advisor, actually, for Pastor Ben and I together. Now I'll take it over. Supervisor for his ministry degree he's getting at Bethel. And so I work together with him on that, and have done that with some of the Korean as well. And so we got good relationships with a lot of these people. It's about us. It's about what God is doing in us, and part of it's happening tonight. And it's been, and some have it this morning. I was a part of that one. I've been a part of all of them. And it's interesting to see how there's healing and hard conversations and comments and healing. There is something, and somebody called me just a little bit on my way in the door, saying, my mind is finally getting lifted. I can't find peace. I can't find peace. But then they said, Jesus is my peace. I've been trying to find peace and an answer to what I'd like to see happen and how I can take care of people, of everybody. And so Jesus is our peace. And Jesus is the peace for all these people. But we are, as we've been saying, the hands and feet of Jesus. And so this is a really neat opportunity for LifePoint to figure out, how to heal through the years. Think of the splits that people still talk about. Think of the stuff that's still said about certain staff people back through the years and certain pastors. I heard it again today. 15 years ago or whatever, there's still pain. There's pain for certain people, even at Converge. There's pain. And I know all of that because I hear the other side. Before I ever knew about here, I heard about here. I heard about the pain. I've been in 12 congregations the last 20 years of Converge doing this kind of stuff. And how we talk about each other across the state and across the city is unbelievable. And I've counted a privilege to sit with that. I'm wired to sit with that because it's something that as I sit with it and I have to deal with it internally, then I think maybe that means that we can all deal with it internally. And so we're dealing with Eagle Brook. Everybody deals with Eagle Brook, right? The monster, right? I was on staff when they ran out of money and had to fire 14 pastors. They didn't fire me because they wanted to make sure the seniors were taken care of. They should have fired me right away. They fired other people. They said, you're staying because Spring Lake Park senior people are going to be taken care of. And so they have their struggles too. I know when they have their struggles. I'm one of their consultants to their staff. And so it's just interesting for me to just be a part of this and to journey with you and love you, because I do. And I've got a piece of the ministry that I've let go of a long time ago. And everybody else is hanging on to Anchored for me. And I'm saying, yeah, it's going to be okay. The choir, it's going to be okay. Now, my whole thing, and I'll wrap it up, is the reason that, I love the idea of sales and what could be done with the money, because there's ways to do a lot of stuff like that. I've been a part of some of that. Business guy, too. I had a business for 20 years. But the idea of this would be the fifth church, if this goes this way, that I've helped transition from dying to being an alive church. And in each one, it was passing the baton of this congregation, Grandpa and Grandma giving it to the kids, basically, right? Passing it on as an ongoing ministry and staying right here with it. Selling is different than that. Selling is you turn it over to somebody else and they do what they're going to do with it. But giving it over this way is the way that this legacy can continue for the next 150 years. And that's what's happening at Elam, that's what's happening at Spring Lake Park, that's what's happening now at Coon Rapids, and that's what's happening at Word of Grace Church, I think it was. I worked with another Converge church down by the airport. All of them are full, all with more than one service, some with 4 services. Not all Eagle Brook. Only one of them's Eagle Brook. And so that's just something I just wanted to share. I think you're doing a good job. I think you're doing a good job with a very hard topic. The vote is no, I'm not worried about that either. The vote is no, I'm not worried about it. The vote is yes, it makes a lot of sense, and it was a God thing. it seems like a God thing for me personally when I look at everything and take some of my emotions out of it, because the very time that they came through with yes from their board is the very time when we were out of money. And the big checks didn't come in like they usually do. They quit coming like they usually do. Doesn't mean that they won't still come, but they haven't come. And so what's that about, right? What's that about? Somebody comes like, is that a miracle? Or is that like, what? And so I've been thinking about that a lot. So thank you. Thank you for the privilege of being here. Missions. Eagle Brook gives millions to missions. I won't tell you how they do it, but they do. The offering that they were talking about that might help us, that $3 million offering they took on one weekend a while back, that comes back to the individual campuses to help people like, if it was Anchored or if it was somebody else, help those kinds of groups. So they help a lot that way. What we can do for our missionaries is just keep giving, because we have separate budget. This is easy here. A lot of times it's a general budget, just all comes out of it. We have a separate missions budget. And so that means everybody that's given to missions, why would we just stop? We don't quit giving to God. Why wouldn't we keep giving to every single missionary till we die? Why not? I don't know why not. I don't understand that. I don't understand why people would not keep giving to God in whatever way. Some of you support Anchored. You can keep doing that if you want. Others support other things. There isn't any reason why, as soon as the staff is done the 31st of December, then $20,000 a month is going to go a long ways. Right now, 40,000 takes to, I mean, we're 20,000 a month short right now. But when that's all gone, we're still going to have money if you want to, right? Why would we quit giving to God? Why wouldn't we take care of our missionaries? Why wouldn't we take care of what some of these churches might need in transition? Why wouldn't we do that? That's what I kind of think about. Because we'll have some money then if we, unless we just decide what would we decide? What would mean we wouldn't give? You think about what would cause us not to do that. Anger, frustration, didn't get my way. That's what people usually tell me in counseling. I say maybe forgiveness would go a long way. So I don't want to over-talk, but I've just been around a while and wanted to share that. And I'm in the midst of being one of the organizations that is affected, and yet at the same time, not worried about it. Because I'd like to have that same crew that works with the kitchen work with us wherever we're at. Hopefully this kitchen, but wherever we're at. I think so anyway, that's probably enough. But I just wanted to share that. So I love you all.
You know what the toughest job is, Ross?
What, buddy?
You know what the toughest job is?
What's the toughest job?
Follow Pastor Dan.
Following Pastor Dan, yeah.
I think we should close it down.
Last chance. I don't want anyone to leave here saying I didn't get a chance to speak. All right. I will now cast my gaze around the room and randomly choose one of you to close us in prayer. Debbie Matthews, will you please pray for us?
She was looking down, by the way.
I know she was looking down.
She'll do well.
All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, we just thank you for being here with us tonight, and for being with this church for 150 years, and for being with this church for the next 150 years, because it can continue, not necessarily in the same way it has in the past, potentially in a different way for the future. And we ask that you give us your guidance for the future of this church, not necessarily how I as myself want it to be, but as how you would have it to be. What would be the best for your glory, Lord, not for my will, not for my needs, but for yours. How can this church continue in the future for your will, for your goodness, for your work? Help us to discern that in our hearts and together as a congregation. It's a hard decision. It's not one we want to make, but it's one that we've been given. And what will we do with that decision? How will we decide that in our hearts, in our votes, in our conversations with our friends and our loved ones here at church? What is our attitude? Is it for your glory, Or is it for our glory or our selfish needs? It's hard not to be selfish and want things our own way. Please be with us as we make this decision, as we talk amongst each other. Help us to make the decision in the right frame of mind for you, for this church, for its legacy, how it can continue to work and grow for you. Please be with us in the next weeks as we make this decision and we think of the future of this church, considering the past and all that it has meant to so many people. What can it mean to so many more people in the future? Please be with us and continue to bless us in this church. Amen.
I'm going to ask Debbie to pray more often. Thank you. Drive carefully.